Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Welcome back to The Claim Game. I am Jeremy Zug, and this is Kathryn Zug. And for the past several rounds, we've been navigating the credentialing territory on the game board, which, as you know, is the essential first step to getting fully in play and maximizing your practice's revenue.
That's right. We have journeyed from understanding what credentialing is and how to prepare for it to meticulously managing applications, signing contracts, and establishing those critical start dates. We've covered the what and the how of getting credentialed.
Today, we're bringing our credentialing series to a close, but not before we talk about something absolutely vital for every practice owner: measuring your success. How do you really know if your in-house credentialing efforts are paying off, right? How do you assess your payer relationships from a data perspective?
Exactly. This episode is all about clarity through numbers. We're going to introduce the concept of a credentialing KPI dashboard. KPIs, or key performance indicators, are your secret weapon. Not so secret. People use KPIs for understanding the efficiency of your credentialing process and the strength of your payer partnerships.
Yeah, so let's get ready to put on our analyst hats, put on your data hats, because we're diving into mastering the metrics, your credentialing KPI dashboard. So, Kathryn, why is it so important for practice owners to track specific metrics for something like credentialing? For a lot of providers, it feels like an administrative hurdle you jump over once. So what's the real advantage of putting data behind it?
That's a really great question. It does feel like, why would we analyze something that we're just going to do this one time and then move on from? It's not an ongoing process. It can be an ongoing process, but that's a common oversight.
So, Kathryn, how does tracking this actually benefit a practice owner day to day?
I think without tracking anything, you're flying blind. So you might be experiencing delays, denials, or missed revenue opportunities and not really understand why or where the root of the problem is. How do I fix something that I can't identify? So tracking KPI helps you do two primary things. First, evaluate the success and efficiency of your in-house credentialer or the team that you've outsourced this to. And second, it allows you to better evaluate your actual payer relationships. Are certain payers consistently slower or more problematic than others? The data will tell you. It won't tell you exactly what to fix. It's an indicator, right? So it's like having a dashboard light on your car. It will tell you where to look.
That makes a lot of sense. And it offers actionable insights for improvement.
Yeah, precisely. You're gonna have practical steps to walk through following the analysis of a KPI dashboard. So it turns this anecdotal frustration into objective data. I feel like we often function off of subjective data
all the time.
And this is more objective. So it's essential for making smart business decisions about your team and your payer mix. The last thing you want to have is a feeling about a person or a partnership be what drives your decision making. Let's make it more than a feeling.
Right. Yeah. So let's get into the specifics. What are the most critical metrics or KPIs that every practice owner should be measuring, and how do we use this data to really master credentialing?
Yeah, so we've really identified 5 key performance indicators for your credentialing dashboard. The first one is insurance revenue target analysis.
What exactly what exactly does this KPI aim to measure?
This KPI is a little bit outside of like a strict credentialing KPI, but it's credentialing adjacent, so we included it here. It is all about verifying that your payer selection is actually meeting your profitability goals. So to do that, you need to analyze your monthly expense average and pick a target monthly revenue goal that supports a profit number sufficient for your needs. I said a lot right there, but
yes. Yeah. Explain a little bit more about what you're saying.
yeah, so you have to look at your expenses and analyze them to see how much you need as a kind of a baseline. What do I need to cover each month? But then you also have profitability goals. So that would be above and beyond your expenses. And you use that information to determine what you need to be making hourly or average monthly revenue. So this KPI will allow you to verify that you're keeping an average profitability of insurance appointments per month that helps you meet your target monthly revenue.
Yeah, that's smart. So as an objective, that makes a lot of sense. But how do we measure this particular KPI and pull the data effectively?
Yeah, I think this KPI should ideally be easy to track if you are pulling the right reports out of your electronic health record or EHR. So within the first couple days of each month, you want to run a revenue report by payer of the previous month to pull the revenue that you earned by payer.
Right.
You'll enter the name of each insurance company listed on the revenue report into your dashboard. And then you'll add revenue totals for each payer in the monthly revenue field with the correct month column. Then you'll run an appointment count report by payer to see, you're going to now compare how many appointments did I perform compared to how much revenue did I make. And then that will give you an average.
Yeah, great. What is like a dashboard light? What does this metric tell us, and how should we correct it if it indicates an issue?
Once the data is populated, if your composite average revenue per appointment is not returning a value at or above your target minimum threshold, look at the payer data, noting any payers that do not individually meet this threshold. So let me back up a little bit. The first thing you need to do is identify what your target monthly revenue is.
Right.
And that's something static that would sit at the top of this page on your dashboard. Like, I need to make X dollars this month. Or maybe you have it even more granular than that. I need to average X dollars per appointment.
Interesting.
Okay. And then you're going to run the revenue and the appointment count, and it's going to give you an average per appointment. What are you making on average?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, you might have to get more granular if all your appointment times represent different amounts of time, right? So there are some nuances to this information. But then you're going to look individually at those payers and say, compared to my static target at the top, are there some underperformers that are giving me a lower reimbursement, perhaps, or not giving me the right average?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
For sure.
So that's where you would say, is this a contender for removing this payer from my payer list? Probably not after a single month, and probably not on this data alone, because there is the consideration of, is this one of my Y companies?
Yeah, one of the mission-focused payers.
Exactly, where you know that it's going to be less than what you are targeting, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So that's fantastic. And to help with that, we have our Identify Your Ideal Insurance Mix worksheet. How does that fit in here, and what value does that bring?
Yes. So our Identify Your Ideal Insurance Mix worksheet is designed to work hand in hand with this KPI. So there are things that you can do to get to your target monthly revenue or your target hourly rate, right? How do I nail that down? Well, this tool helps you do exactly that. It will not only spit out for you what your percentage mix should be by insurance payer, but it will also help you identify your target. I think it's an hourly rate.
Yeah,
I
it
have
is
to
an
double
hourly
check,
rate.
but I'm pretty sure it's your target hourly rate. And it does that by doing an expense analysis. At the first thing that you do is an expense analysis. And then it takes that information and it adds, do you have a target salary for yourself? Do you have profitability goals? Do you have reinvestment goals for the company? And taxes, which is one of those.
Yeah, don't forget taxes.
Don't forget to pay taxes. And then it will help you identify, okay, well, this is then, to meet these goals, this is what you need to make. And then you'll go down and do analysis of payers that you want to have on your payer mix. And it will tell you if that is sufficient, and or it will help you identify what percentage of each of those payers to have on your payer list in your caseload management. It might tell you that your target hourly revenue is too high and you need to cut some expenses. But I would say more than that, it will tell you which payers might not be worth having on your list unless it's truly your why company.
Yeah, that's fair. So essentially with this tool, you'd be able to not only track your actual revenue against your target hourly rate, but against your ideal mixture to see if you're keeping the correct proportions.
Right. Yeah. So in this KPI, you're not only going to see if your hourly rate is incorrect, but you can probably also see, okay, this is the percentage of my mix that I kept this month. And that's a little bit off. So I need to either add a couple more patients, or we need to hold off on adding patients until that goes down a little bit.
Yeah, great. Do we have another KPI to manage or to measure?
Yes, we do. The next would be, now we're into like the strict credentialing KPIs.
Yeah.
Time to contract would be KPI number 2 on this credentialing dashboard.
What exactly does time to contract measure, and why is that information so valuable for a practice?
Yeah, this KPI measures the time it takes to become an in-network provider from submission of the credentialing contract to in-network date. It's valuable to look at this data by payer and by employee, whoever completed the credentialing. So you can properly estimate and communicate the lead time that a provider will have to wait to see patients in network with that payer. But it can also help you track associated costs with each application, because if this particular payer takes 20% longer to get in network with, or 20% more effort on the behalf of the employee, then you're actually spending more money to get people in network with that company. So you want to make sure it's worth it.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do we accurately track time to contract?
This is one of those pull periodically, quarterly, biannually, or annually, depending on your volume of submissions. To keep accurate data, you need to track all ongoing credentialing application submissions. On your predetermined schedule, open the spreadsheet where you keep this information and filter the status column for complete in network. So you only want to look at applications that are done. And then you're going to copy the insurance company and the employee name columns and paste them into time to contract on your credentialing KPI dashboard. Then you're going to copy time to welcome letter and time to finalization columns from your spreadsheet into the corresponding fields on your dashboard. And you'll also pull averages from your spreadsheet's data for KPI dashboard. I need to mention at this point that I am referring to tools that exist within our Hourglass, because you're probably like, where are these columns coming from?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So you need to go to practicesoul.com. There's an Hourglass tab there, and subscribe to the Hourglass to get all of our KPI dashboards, all of our toolkits, everything that we would use and recommend for a private practice to run billing efficiently and effectively. So That's what Kathryn's referring to. So go ahead there and download all of these dashboards for you, and all of this will make a lot of sense.
Because the tools, like, you can track this stuff independent of our tools. Absolutely.
Sure.
But we've designed the credentialing application follow-up log where you already are tracking this information, and the KPI dashboard to work in tandem. So you're just going to copy information from one, paste it into the other, and it will calculate a lot of this information.
And you're off to the races. So what is time to contract track for us to evaluate?
The dashboard will automatically calculate your averages by insurance company once you paste all this information, and by employee. So you're going to get a clear view of the comparison between insurance company speed and employee speed to see if there are any standouts.
Which is really valuable, knowing if you have a process or a people issue. So this could be really valuable. What do you see as the primary meaning of data, Kathryn?
Practically speaking, for your internal processes, this primarily helps you identify on your hiring lead time. If you know how long your longest payer takes from application submission to finalization or start date, then you can plan hiring way better. So if I know it's always 6 months is the longest one,
there you go.
That will help. And then 2, determining the optimal order for submitting your applications. So if you have enough data, you should be able to see kind of how they stack up, how your payers stack up as far as lead time goes, and then submit in that order. 3, you can see if any payers backdate their effective dates. It will be a clearer picture for you. If this one might be a little bit less obvious or maybe less valuable to you, but it's possible that we will be able to see if any payers backdate their contracts, which again would be helpful for ordering your work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's all super helpful for evaluating your internal processes. Can you tell us more about the implications of this data on payer and employee relationships?
Yes, this is where the information can become harder to swallow. Highly valuable, but the implications are just a little bit more severe. So let's talk about employee evaluation. If you have one employee completing the credentialing tasks within your office, this will likely not be as valuable to you. However, if you have 2 or more and there is a stark difference in their completion time, you'd want to investigate that further.
Yeah, you'd want to drill down to that, and that can be tough, but you ultimately want your team to be performing at a top level, if you want things to run smoothly. So what types of things might you look at to determine if a payer is a good partner or not?
So you may decide when looking at the data cumulatively that a specific payer's long lead time isn't worth the wait.
Yep.
Especially considering this data with other factors like their customer service or their fee schedules, potentially leading to a payer list amendment. So let's think about KPI 1 and KPI 2 together. If I have a payer that's target hourly is lower than their hourly is low compared to your target, and their lead time is long, now I have more reason to say, is this a good fit?
Yeah, that's fair.
But I would investigate this further before making a decision, which leads us to KPI number 3,
Nice.
which is application completion accuracy. To investigate the payer or employee further, consider drilling down into the accuracy. The dashboard also provides averages by employee or credentialer, giving you insights into their individual efficiency and skill. If you flag a payer or a credentialer for a longer than desired average time to completion, further investigation is recommended, which this would be like a as needed KPI.
For sure. So this metric looks at how accurately our team fills out the applications?
Partly, yeah. It's going to give us more information into the lead time for each application. The lead time could have been lengthened by different factors. So improper application completion, or it could be lengthened due to internal inefficiencies of the insurance company in question. This helps us better identify which of those 2 things is true, or both, which would also guide our next steps.
Yeah, why is this particular KPI so significant?
I think this KPI should be investigated if you have longer than desired averages for that time to contract metric for any payer or credentialer. So you can drill down into the data to see if you are seeing patterns for specific payers or credentialers regarding the request for additional documentation. This could indicate a necessary process change, retraining for a credentialer, or that payer list refinement.
Yeah, very interesting. This information, then, while it takes interpretation, is quite valuable. And how would a practice go about gathering the data to measure this accuracy?
Yeah, so I've mentioned this a few times, but every practice should be tracking application submissions on some sort of spreadsheet. We recommend using the completion log. All the data for application completion accuracy would then just be pulled from that spreadsheet, as you would already be tracking this information. So if you had a higher than desired time to welcome letter or time to contract, KPI number 2, for Aetna or for Jane. Jane is your credentialer. She had some really long lead times overall compared to Jeff.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out why, then you're going to open that spreadsheet and you're going to filter the status column for that in-network completed status. But then you're also going to filter it by payer and or credentialer, and you're going to copy that information and the relevant columns into application completion accuracy tab of your credentialing KPI dashboard. Then you will have to investigate each corresponding line of the credentialing application follow-up log to determine the answers to 2 different metrics: additional documentation required, question mark, and number of follow-ups. So those are the 2 things that we're measuring. Did they submit the application and they got a notification that they needed more information? The payer needed more information. And then how many times did this credentialer follow up on this application? The idea is that you would be doing a drill down for information from a specific payer or credentialer.
Yeah, amazing. What does this metric tell us if the accuracy is low, and what specific corrections or training might be needed?
When analyzing the data for the specific payer, look at the percent yes for additional documentation required, percent over 7 for number of follow-ups, and percent over 7. So if I had to do more than 7 follow-ups,
Oof, that's a
then
lot.
yeah, I'm going to flag that. Or if I had how many times was I asked for additional documentation? So if your goals are exceeded, this is considered high volume of applications for the same payer requiring additional documentation or that many follow-ups. So we recommend that you either revisit your process to ensure adherence, or you revise your process to account for patterns. So you have a pattern now. If you're seeing that on multiple applications, then you need to find out what is triggering that. So if adherence, like let's say your process is really good, but you just have learned that your credentialer is not adhering to the process. Because when I look at Aetna on Jeff's dashboard, he's not having the same result. So he's clearly doing something different. Retraining may be necessary recourse. If after exhausting that recommendation, you're still not satisfied with the time to welcome letter or contract with a specific payer or credentialer, consider refining your payer list. If you're doing that for a credentialer and you've refined your process and they're just not doing a great job, then we might be talking more about involuntary termination, which is the nice way of saying fire them.
Yeah, and that's a really tough call to make, but the data is so objective that it takes a lot of the information, the heat, the feeling out of it. By the time you're refining your payer list or involuntarily terminating an employee, if that's legal in your state and you're allowed to do that kind of thing.
Well, this is giving you the documentation.
Yeah,
so hopefully,
sure. Yeah, hopefully it leads to that, or doesn't. You have done your due diligence and see a pattern of behavior. So what's the fourth KPI?
This episode was brought to you by the Hourglass Learning Hub. We know that managing your practice's revenue cycle can feel complex. That's why Practice Solutions has built the Hourglass Learning Hub, a comprehensive platform designed to simplify every aspect of your billing machine. We've organized foundational knowledge across 6 critical domains: credentialing, patient registration, eligibility and benefits, payment posting, aging follow-up, and claim submission. Each piece is vital, and we've compiled revenue cycle management educational articles for a clear understanding of how they all interconnect, giving you those aha moments you've been waiting for. For practical application, dive into our DIY billing resources, the very tools and templates our own team uses to help you proactively manage claims and optimize cash flow. And when you hit a roadblock, our Ask the Biller feature provides a direct channel to our seasoned experts for personalized video responses to your gnarly billing questions. If you're ready to take decisive control of your practice's financial health, explore the Hourglass Learning Hub today. Become a member of the Hourglass Learning Hub to access these awesome resources. For the Claim Game listeners only, we are offering 15% off the annual membership, which means you can have access to all these resources today for only $425 for the year. Click the link in the show notes to get started today.
Let's talk about credentialing efficacy.
If accuracy is about getting it right, what exactly does efficacy tell us in the credentialing context?
Yeah, so credentialing efficacy measures the total success of credentialing application submissions, those that result in in-network status over the total completed credentialing application submissions. It is meant to be measured by payer as a way to evaluate the partnership between your practice and the insurance company partner. So if they have a high volume of denials, that relationship may want to be reconsidered.
Yeah, totally. How do we measure this important success rate?
You can update the information by copying the corresponding data from the Data for KPI Dashboard tab of the Credentialing Application Follow-up log. So there are certain data that will just automatically populate in this other tab in that follow-up log that can be then copied and pasted into the credentialing KPI dashboard. If this data shows a higher than desired percent of total applications denied, copy the data for each insurance company from the Data for KPI dashboard tab of the credentialing application follow-up log and paste it into the credentialing efficacy tab. This will automatically calculate the percentage of applications approved, the number of applications denied, and the percentage of application denied by payer.
What if our efficacy appears low? What does that indicate needs to be corrected?
If you find that a payer has a low percent of total applications approved or a high percent of total applications denied, whichever I might add, it really depends on how one payer stacks up against your payer list as a whole. Further investigation is required to understand why. So then it is our recommendation that you would then move to KPI 5.
All right. So what's KPI number 5?
Application denial reasons. So if I have flagged a payer for a high denial rate, I need to then find out why.
Okay, great. So it sounds like this KPI gives us a deeper understanding of why applications aren't going through. What's the main benefit of tracking this specific data?
This KPI gives you a deeper dive into the reason a credentialing application is denied, because there are 3 typical reasons. 1, the network is closed or the panel's closed. 2, there are too many errors on the application. Or 3, the provider does not have the necessary qualification to join the panel. So knowing the reason for denials can really help you determine the quality of the payer partnership, again, and/or the employee.
How exactly do we gather this information on denial reasons?
Well, we're going to do some more copying and pasting.
Oh, great. Sounds good.
This should already be tracked. So you're really taking that data for KPI dashboard tab of the credentialing application follow-up log and pasting it into application denial reason tab of the credentialing KPI dashboard. It's just going to reorganize it in a way that's more helpful. The percentage of total credentialing application denials by denial reason will automatically generate for your review and further analysis.
Once we have these categorized reasons, what do they tell us and how can we use that information to make necessary corrections?
When you're evaluating a denial reason by payer, first recall any payers that had a higher than ideal number of applications denied. If a single payer has a denial reason of closed panel, and it's not scheduled to reopen within 6 months, you might want to evaluate your partnership and see if you can refine your payer list, because you're going to have to, let's say I have 10 providers, they're all in network with this payer, but now their panel is closed. I can't add new providers.
Nope.
Therefore, I have to find a replacement.
Whoops.
So if a provider has a provider qualification not met is the denial reason. Check the application to verify that the qualifications of that provider were first properly represented. That might not be the only reason. That it could just be that they don't have the qualifications, but you want to check first to make sure you filled it out properly. And then if a single payer has a high percentage of application error as the denial reason, further investigation is required to evaluate the payer. You must determine if the employee has incorporated communicated changes and adhered to them before determining if the payer is the one that's at fault or unnecessarily arduous in their credentialing process. So what I mean by that is, if I have been credentialing with this payer for a long time and they've given me feedback that says, hey, you keep filling this out incorrectly, and I've just not incorporated that into my process, then your employee is at fault.
Interesting.
Not the payer.
Yeah, that does make sense.
But if the problem lies with the payer's processing regulations, then I would consider reevaluating that partnership. If it's with the employee, now I'm looking at retraining, involuntary termination, something along those lines.
Makes sense. Kathryn, this all sounds incredibly valuable. Did you have anything else to add for denial reasons?
Yeah, so I do want to mention about application error. Multiple denials for the same payer might indicate that that employee is not refining their process or making recurrent identical mistakes. So kind of like I said, they're just not incorporating those changes into the process. In rare cases, application error may be a pattern for a specific provider. That would be the last thing. Suggesting that there's an issue in the initial data collection, way back at the beginning of the credentialing information gathering. It's possible that you're getting errors for the same provider with all of your applications.
Okay.
So just make sure that you haven't misrepresented something about the provider. You might want to go back to that initial information gathering.
Yeah, this all sounds really valuable, but for a busy practice owner, setting up and maintaining a KPI dashboard might seem daunting at first. What's a practical first step to get started?
I think it is easier than it sounds. I've said a lot of things about copying and pasting. And first of all, if you can access this episode via video feed, do that, because I'm including videos on how to actually accomplish what I'm saying, because it's a little bit hard to follow when you just have words. But if you really want to understand how to do it, watch the actual feed here. And then I think do it once.
Yeah.
Try it. It's not as bad as you think it is. You want to leverage the data that you're already collecting.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily need to invest in a whole new complex system right away, right?
Not necessarily. I don't want to assume that you're using the tools that we're recommending, but if you are, it will be a lot easier to track because the functionality is already built in. So if you're using the credentialing application follow-up log as the foundation, which we talked about in rolling the follow-up dice, you're already noting submission dates, status updates, requests for more information. That is all very rich data that you're integrating into this dashboard.
Yeah. How does gathering this data help in evaluating specific payer relationships?
Yeah, and that's where you're going to combine the follow-up log with your insurance contact reference list. For example, if you notice that a specific payer consistently has longer time to contract or higher rate of application denial for a particular reason, you can cross-reference that with your notes in your reference guide. So it might reveal a systemic issue with the payer's portal or a specific contact you need to escalate to.
So the dashboard essentially brings all this scattered information into a single cohesive view?
Yes, and it makes everything much easier to evaluate. So once I have enough data in my KPI dashboard, I would transcribe those lead times, for example, into my insurance contact reference list for future use. So that's like, if I have all my payers on this list, I'm going to say takes 6 months, takes 8 months, so that I have that for future reference. And that's how then you would order your information. And then you populate these tabs monthly by pulling the relevant data from your follow-up log and your credentialing matrix. Or you can use our pre-formatted version of the credentialing KPI dashboard that is designed to crunch those numbers for you already. So whatever you feel most comfortable doing, the key is that you track the information.
Yeah, and who is responsible for tracking these KPIs and who should be reviewing them within the practice?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you have an in-house credentialer or administrative staff member handling these tasks, that they would be populating these into your log, matrix, credentialing reference list ongoing, but maybe you just have a monthly cleanup task of some sort. So it's not daily, but monthly that person would use the KPI dashboard to evaluate the success of their work. So then the practice owner would then regularly review the dashboard, and it becomes a really fantastic tool for performance reviews for your staff, for identifying training needs, for holding payers accountable. Honestly, this is just one of the 6 territories that we're going to be talking about, and each territory has its own metrics to measure. So I would recommend a monthly or quarterly review where the data in each territory is evaluated, and we'll tell you exactly what we would track in each area once we get there.
Yeah, it sounds like this approach really shifts the perspective from simply getting credentialing done to getting it done efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, I mean, the last few episodes where we've gone over credentialing things, we've given you the tools to do it efficiently and effectively, but now we're going to measure, is it actually as efficient or effective as it could be? And when you have that data, you can make really powerful decisions for your practice.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the breakdown of each of these credentialing metrics.
Yeah, again, I recommend watching this episode because it will make more sense. But now, Jeremy, it's time to draw our case study card. And today's card asks, do you know a practice that used their credentialing KPIs to make a big decision about either firing an employee or evaluating a payer relationship?
Yeah, we have we have 100 of these if we have one. This stuff happens all the time. But we worked with a growing group practice that was bringing on new clinicians every month. Occasionally, you run across a group practice like that very organized, and they're growing at a pretty good clip. They had an in-house administrative assistant whose role included managing credentialing. Initially, things seemed to be going pretty smoothly. New clinicians were eventually getting credentialed, but the practice owner felt a consistent lag in new providers to bill for insurance.
So what did time to contract KPI reveal about that situation? Because that's where I'm guessing you're going.
That's right. Yeah, we helped them set up their credentialing KPI dashboard because it is a lot of strokes here, specifically focusing on time to contract and application completion accuracy. Then covered a really significant issue. While the admin was diligent in submitting applications, the admin's application completion accuracy for initial submission was consistently below 60% for several key payers.
And what was the impact of that low accuracy on the practice?
These errors meant applications were constantly being flagged for more information, causing delays, and their time to contract for new providers was often exceeding 180 days, far beyond the typical 90 to 120 days for that payer. This directly impacted their insurance revenue target analysis because new providers weren't generating the expected revenue quick enough.
Yeah, they're probably sitting there without anything on their schedule because they can't schedule anybody. Okay, once they started tracking, what did the data reveal about why these errors were happening?
By looking at the application denial reasons, they saw recurring issues like missing taxonomy codes or incorrect NPI types for group applications. The data showed it wasn't laziness, it was simply a knowledge gap in complex credentialing rules. The admin simply hadn't received adequate training for the intricacies of group credentialing, which can be different from individual credentialing.
Yeah, so what did the practice decide to do with this employee?
Well, instead of just firing her for quote-unquote poor performance, the practice owner sat down with the data. They saw she was organized and trying, but lacked specific expertise. So they invested in targeted training for her using the exact denial reasons as curriculum. They also reevaluated their onboarding process for new admins, and within 3 months, her application completion accuracy soared and the time to contract for new clinicians dramatically decreased. The dashboard literally transformed an underperforming employee into a highly efficient team member, saving the practice money and improving their clinician onboarding. It was a huge win for them.
Yeah, that's a powerful story about the power of KPIs.
That's right.
So, Jeremy, and of why proactive management and data are absolutely essential. So we've talked about the how-to and the what-if scenarios, and now the critical how to measure. I mean, without having that dashboard, this provider, this owner would have just continued to have this feeling of frustration, which could have led to termination of an employee that was actually a pretty good employee.
Yeah, trainable for sure. It's truly the final piece of the credentialing puzzle. By mastering the metrics we've discussed today, insurance revenue target analysis, time to contract, application completion accuracy, credentialing efficacy, and application denial reasons, you gain invaluable insight into your practice's operations and your payer relationships.
Yeah, this isn't just about spreadsheets. Like, you might not be a spreadsheet person. It's really about empowerment. It's about ensuring your hard work and the hard work of other people that you either are paying externally or internally translates into consistent revenue, and that your practice remains a strong, legitimate player on the healthcare game board.
Yeah, and that wraps up our deep dive into credentialing. We've covered every stage from initial application to ongoing management and now mastering the metrics.
But don't go anywhere. Next time on the Claim Game, we'll move beyond credentialing to the very next crucial territory on our game board, patient registration. Get ready to discuss how seamless patient intake can make or break your revenue from the very first interaction. You won't want to miss it.
Great. Thanks, everybody. If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have two places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.